All right, so we're diving deep today into the world of financial risk management, getting ready for those big interviews.
Really exciting stuff.
Yeah, and we've got all the RoleCatcher resources right here in front of us, the career guide, the interview guide, even some info on their AI tools. And yeah, I think, we were talking about this a little before, but the stakes are high in this field, but the rewards can be pretty enticing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're looking at a career with some serious earning potential, and the work itself is really intellectually stimulating.
Yeah.
And you're right there at the table with, top executives.
hmm
It's a pretty great package.
Yeah, it's not too shabby at all.
No.
So I guess, first things first, what does a financial risk manager actually do? Because I think there are a lot of people out there who picture, somebody kind of staring at a screen, predicting the next market crash, doom and gloom kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a common misconception.
Yeah.
It's less about predicting doom and gloom and more about being this strategic protector of an organization's assets. Think of it this way. You're using those analytical skills to identify and assess potential risks. And that could be anything from market volatility to credit defaults, operational hiccups,
Okay.
even regulatory changes. And then you're developing strategies to mitigate those risks and advising senior management on the best course of action.
So you're really kind of like safeguarding the company's financial health in a lot of ways.
Exactly.
Okay. So
Sure.
RoleCatcher's interview guide is absolutely packed with these sample questions. So let's just dive right into those. And I think one that's almost guaranteed to come up is, tell me about a time you had to manage a significant financial risk. How do you even begin to approach that?
So this is where you want to really showcase those problem-solving skills and your ability to think strategically.
Okay.
Don't just list out tasks that you performed. You really want to structure your answer like a story, like a concise story.
Oh.
Set the scene, describe the specific risk you identified, explain the steps you took to mitigate it, and then highlight the positive outcome you achieved.
And I'm guessing numbers are really key here, right? Like, did your actions save the company money or reduce their risk exposure by a certain percentage? You have to be specific.
Absolutely. Quantifiable results are gold in these interviews because they demonstrate the tangible impact that you made.
Okay.
So instead of saying like, oh, I improved the risk profile, you could say something like, I implemented a new hedging strategy that reduced our exposure to currency fluctuations by 10%, which saved the company $5 million.
Wow.
You see the difference there.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a powerful example.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of concrete examples, what about when they ask about value at risk or VAR? I know that sounds super technical.
Yeah, it is a pretty technical concept,
Yeah.
but, explaining it clearly shows that you've got the chops.
Right.
So start by defining VAR simply. It's a measure of the potential loss on an investment over a specific time frame at a given confidence level.
Okay.
And then you could briefly touch on a common method for calculating it, like historical simulation. But most importantly, relate VAR to a real-world FRM scenario.
So something like VAR helps determine the amount of capital a bank needs to hold to cover potential losses.
Exactly. You're demonstrating you understand not just the concept, but also how it's applied in practice.
Perfect.
Now, this is where RoleCatcher's AI can come in handy because you can practice, your VAR explanation and get feedback on whether it's clear, concise, and tailored to the specific role you're applying for.
That's pretty cool. So you can kind of get a sense of, okay, is this going to resonate with the person I'm actually interviewing with?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. All right, next up, let's tackle a question that's all about strategy. How do you balance risk and return when making investment decisions?
All right, so this is your chance to really articulate your investment philosophy and your decision-making process.
Okay.
Are you more conservative, prioritizing capital preservation, or do you kind of lean towards calculated risks to pursue those higher returns? There's no right or wrong answer,
Okay.
but your rationale needs to be clear and well supported.
So it's less about, saying I'm a risk taker or I'm risk averse. It's more about saying, here's how I analyze a situation, weigh the pros and cons, and
Yeah.
come to a decision that makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Use examples from your experience to illustrate your approach.
Got it.
Maybe you recommended an investment with a slightly higher risk profile, but you backed it up with thorough research and a compelling case for its potential returns. What were the key factors that you considered? How did you communicate those recommendations to the stakeholders?
And that's where you can kind of show them, okay, you can think on your feet, you can analyze the situation, and you can present it in a way that makes sense to people who maybe aren't as familiar with all the ins and outs of the financial world.
Yeah.
Cool. And I bet that RoleCatcher's Career Guide probably has some insights into the different career paths and specializations within financial risk management, right?
Oh, yeah, they've got a great breakdown of
Yeah.
different career stages from entry-level analyst roles to those senior management positions.
Oh, wow.
Knowing these paths can help you frame your answers in terms of your career goals and aspirations.
Okay.
So, for example, if you're aiming for a leadership role, you could highlight your experience mentoring junior colleagues or taking initiative on projects. That way, you're not just answering the question, but you're also showing them that you're thinking long-term and aligning your skills with their organization's needs.
That's a good strategy.
Right?
Okay, let's keep going with these interview questions because I think this one seems pretty straightforward. How do you stay up to date with the latest trends and changes in financial risk management? But I'm sure there's more to it than just saying, oh, I read the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, it might seem straightforward, but this is your chance to really demonstrate your commitment to continuous learning, which is crucial in this field.
Oh, definitely. This field is constantly changing.
Yeah, constantly.
Yeah.
Think about the resources you use. Are you an avid reader of industry publications like Risk Magazine or the Journal of Financial Economics? Do you participate in webinars or online courses? Are you a member of any professional organizations like JARP or PRMIA?
And I imagine it's not just about listing those resources, but also explaining why you find them valuable and how they help you stay informed.
Exactly. Maybe you follow a particular thought leader whose insights you find, particularly relevant. Or maybe you appreciate the peer-to-peer learning opportunities offered by a professional organization.
Right.
Show them that you're actively engaged in the field, not just passively absorbing information.
So you're basically saying, like, I'm not just keeping up. I'm trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that curve is constantly shifting in the world of finance.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's tackle a question that I think often throws people off. Tell me about a time you disagreed with a colleague or a supervisor about a risk management decision. How did you handle the situation?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, it's the dreaded conflict resolution question.
It can be tricky, but it's an opportunity to demonstrate your professionalism, your communication skills, and your ability to navigate those challenging situations. The key here is to focus on the process, not the personalities involved.
Okay, so instead of saying, my boss was being completely unreasonable,
Right.
you focus on, the steps you took to understand their perspective.
Yeah.
And then present your viewpoint, in a constructive way.
Exactly. You might say something like, I respectfully presented my analysis and concerns, but ultimately the decision was made to proceed with a different approach. I learned a valuable lesson from that experience about the importance of clear communication and collaboration in risk management.
That sounds a lot more professional.
Right.
And it shows that you can handle disagreements gracefully,
Yeah.
which I think is essential in any kind of collaborative environment.
Yeah, they're not looking for somebody who always agrees. They want somebody who can think critically, voice their opinions respectfully, and contribute to a well-informed decision-making process.
So it's kind of about, not being afraid to speak up, but doing it in a way that's productive.
Exactly.
And helps everybody kind of move forward. Okay, let's move on to a question that's all about, your understanding of the different risk categories. Can you explain the difference between market risk and credit risk?
Okay.
Now, I feel like this is a pretty fundamental concept, but I'm sure there's more to it than just reciting, the textbook definitions.
Yeah, you're right. It's not enough to simply define them as, market risk is the risk of losses due to changes in market prices, and credit risk is the risk of losses due to a borrower's failure to repay a loan.
Right.
You need to go deeper and demonstrate a practical understanding.
Okay, so maybe give an example of how each type of risk could impact a specific company or industry.
Exactly. For instance, you could say market risk is a major concern for investment banks that hold large portfolios of securities. If interest rates rise unexpectedly, the value of their bond holdings could plummet, leading to significant losses. On the other hand, credit risk is a key concern for commercial banks that lend money to businesses and individuals. If a borrower defaults on their loan, the bank could suffer a loss.
Yeah, I think that's so important because it's one thing to know the definition, but it's another thing to say, okay, here's how this actually plays out in the real world.
Absolutely.
And here's where you could get burned if you don't understand it.
Yeah.
Okay, now here's where I think RoleCatcher's AI can really be helpful, because I know their platform allows you to practice answering these types of questions and get personalized feedback.
It does.
So you can even simulate different interview scenarios and adjust your response based on the specific industry or role that you're applying for.
Yeah. That's a really cool feature.
It is very cool. It's like having a custom-tailored interview coach right there in your pocket.
It
Okay, let's keep this momentum going with another common question. Have you ever implemented a risk management strategy that successfully mitigated a financial risk? Tell me about it.
Okay, story time. This is your chance to shine a spotlight on your experience and showcase your ability to put theory into practice.
Yeah, I'm ready for a compelling narrative with a clear beginning, middle, and end.
Exactly. Choose an example that highlights your skills and demonstrates the positive impact you made. And remember the STAR method.
Oh yeah, situation, task, action, result.
That's it. Briefly describe the situation and the risk you were facing, outline the specific tasks you undertook, explain the actions you took to mitigate the risk, and most importantly, quantify the results.
Okay, so if your strategy saved the company money, reduced losses, improved their risk profile, make sure to highlight those achievements because you did that.
Absolutely. Numbers speak volumes in these interviews because they demonstrate the tangible value you bring to the table.
I love it. Okay, this is great.
Mm.
I'm feeling so much more prepared to tackle these interview questions already, just from talking through them.
Yeah, and remember, RoleCatcher's AI can be your secret weapon. You can practice answering these questions, get personalized feedback, and even simulate different interview scenarios. It's like having a mock interview without all that stress.
Without the sweaty palms.
Exactly.
Okay, one last question before we wrap up this first part of our deep dive into financial risk management interview prep. How do you communicate financial risks to senior management? So this is going beyond just understanding it yourself. This is about explaining it to people who maybe aren't as deep in the weeds as you are.
Yeah, this is a crucial skill for any aspiring FRM. You need to be able to explain complex information in a way that's clear, concise, and easy for non-finance folks to understand.
So this is where we avoid the jargon and the really technical details.
Definitely. Think about your audience. Senior managers are busy people. They need the key takeaways presented in a way that's actionable.
So what are some effective strategies for communicating financial risks in a way that's going to resonate with them?
Visuals can be incredibly powerful. A well-designed chart or graph can often communicate more effectively than a page full of text. And remember, tailor your communication style to the situation. A quick email update will be different from a formal presentation to the board of directors.
Right. You're not going to, give a PowerPoint presentation in an email.
Exactly.
And wouldn't RoleCatcher's AI be helpful for practicing those different communication styles and getting feedback on your delivery?
Oh, absolutely. Their platform allows you to simulate different scenarios and get personalized suggestions on how to improve your communication skills. It's like having a communication coach right there in your back pocket.
I love that. I love that imagery. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive into financial risk manager interview prep, but we've got a lot more to come, so stay tuned. We'll be right back with more questions and more insights from RoleCatcher.
Definitely.
Looking forward to it.
So stick around.
Yeah. Welcome back to our deep dive on preparing for your financial risk manager interview. All right, so we're ready to tackle some more of those challenging questions that can really, I think, make or break your chances.
Yeah, because it's not just about knowing the answers.
Right.
It's about showcasing, that strategic thinking and your ability to apply that knowledge in those real-world scenarios.
Right, like you were saying before, it's not just textbook stuff. You have to be able to show that you can actually do this stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's jump right in.
Yeah.
One question that comes up a lot is, how do you identify and assess financial risks within an organization?
Okay, so this is a great opportunity to really walk them through your process.
Okay.
Think of it like a roadmap that they can follow to understand, how you approach risk management.
Okay.
So you want to start by outlining the steps you take from gathering data to analyzing those potential threats.
So you're talking about, conducting internal audits, reviewing financial statements, analyzing market trends, assessing the regulatory landscape, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And don't forget to mention the tools and techniques you use. Are you a fan of SWOT analysis?
Oh, yeah, the classic.
Right. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats.
Yeah.
It's still incredibly relevant for identifying, potential risks in a company's environment.
Okay.
Or maybe you lean more towards, quantitative methods like Monte Carlo simulations to model those different risk scenarios.
Right. So you're kind of showing them that you're familiar with all these different approaches and that you can choose the right tool for the job.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Now, this next question can be a little tricky. Can you explain the concept of value at risk, or VAR, to someone who isn't familiar with financial jargon? So we're talking about, taking those complex concepts and making them accessible to a broader audience.
Right, like explaining rocket science without any of those complicated equations.
Exactly.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah.
So start by defining VAR simply. It's essentially a way to quantify the potential losses on an investment
Go.
over a specific period at a given confidence level. Imagine you're telling a friend, look, there's a 95% chance we won't lose more than $1 million on this investment over the next year.
All right.
That's VAR in a nutshell.
Okay. That's a much less intimidating way to put it.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing they'll want you to know a little bit more about, how it's actually calculated.
Yeah. You might briefly mention, common methods like historical simulation, where you're using past market data to kind of estimate potential future losses. Or if you're feeling ambitious, you could touch on Monte Carlo simulation, where you run thousands of simulations to model a range of possible outcomes. But remember, the key is to keep it clear and concise.
Right. Don't get bogged down in the weeds.
No.
And this is where I think RoleCatcher's AI can really come into play, right?
It can. Their platform allows you to practice your explanation.
Okay.
And get feedback on how well you're balancing that technical accuracy with clarity.
So it's like having this, personal speech coach.
Yeah.
Helping you kind of fine-tune your delivery.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right, shifting gears a little bit. Let's talk about a question that really assesses your, commitment to professional growth. How do you stay up to date with the latest trends and changes in financial risk management?
Yeah.
So this is all about showing that you're not just, complacent. You're always learning and growing.
This is where you showcase your passion for the field and your dedication to that continuous learning. Think about the resources you rely on: industry publications, professional organizations, online courses, conferences, webinars.
And maybe even mention specific examples, right? Like, I'm a regular reader of the Journal of Financial Economics and find their articles on emerging risks super insightful. Or, I recently attended a GARP webinar on stress testing methodologies, and it gave me some really great new tools.
Exactly. Be specific and highlight how these resources help you stay informed. Yeah. And, if you've contributed any thought leadership yourself, like writing articles or presenting at conferences, this is a great time to mention it.
It shows that you're not just, consuming information, you're actually contributing to the field.
Yeah, you're shaping the conversation.
Yeah.
You're demonstrating your commitment to being a thought leader and driving innovation and risk management.
Okay, awesome. All right, so let's tackle a question that can sometimes feel like a curveball. Tell me about a time you implemented a risk management strategy that successfully mitigated a financial risk. So we're back to story time again.
Story time is your chance to bring your experience to life.
Yeah.
And show them, what you're capable of.
Okay.
So back to the STAR method. Setting the scene, outlining the task, explaining the action.
Yeah, and quantifying that result.
Yes. Choose a compelling example that demonstrates those problem-solving skills, that strategic thinking, and your ability to achieve positive outcomes.
Okay.
Don't just describe what you did. Explain why you made those decisions and how your actions led to that favorable result.
All right, so instead of just saying, oh, I implemented a new hedging strategy, maybe I'd say something like, I noticed that our company was exposed to significant currency fluctuations. So I proposed a hedging strategy using currency options. This strategy reduced our potential losses by 15% and saved the company $2 million.
Perfect.
So you're really kind of painting the picture and showing the impact.
You've set the context, explained your rationale, and highlighted the tangible impact of those actions.
I love it. Okay, now here's a question that I think a lot of people struggle with. How do you communicate financial risks to senior management? Because again, we're talking about, sometimes very complex topics, and you have to explain it to people who maybe don't live and breathe finance like you do.
This is a crucial skill because, even the most brilliant risk analysis is useless if you can't effectively communicate those findings to the people who are actually making the decisions.
Right.
So it's all about tailoring that message to your audience. Senior managers, they're busy people. They need those key takeaways presented in a clear, concise, and actionable way.
So, maybe start with a high-level overview of the risk, its potential impact, and the recommended course of action.
Exactly. And visuals can be incredibly helpful here. A well-designed chart or graph can often convey complex information much more effectively than a page full of text.
Yeah, because they can see it.
Right.
It's not just words on a page.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think about using bullet points dashboards or even those interactive presentations to highlight those key insights.
And this is where RoleCatcher's AI could also be helpful. right, for
Yeah.
practicing those different communication styles.
Their platform allows you to simulate different scenarios, like presenting to a CEO versus a board of directors,
Oh, wow.
and get feedback on your delivery.
That's cool.
It's like having a personal communication coach guiding you.
Awesome. Okay, let's tackle a question that's all about technical expertise. What experience do you have with stress testing? So this is where you can really kind of show, your knowledge of all those different methodologies and how you've applied them in real-world situations.
So we're talking about things like, historical simulations, Monte Carlo simulations, sensitivity analysis, scenario analysis.
Yeah, all the fun stuff.
Right. Describe the specific types of stress tests you've conducted, the tools and software you've used, and most importantly, the insights you've gained that helped the organization make, more informed risk management decisions.
Right, because it's not just about running the tests. It's about actually, using those results to make better decisions.
Right. Identifying those vulnerabilities,
Yeah.
assessing those potential losses, and developing those effective mitigation strategies.
Okay, now let's wrap up this part of our deep dive with a question that really assesses, that big picture thinking. How do you balance risk and return when making investment decisions? So this feels like walking a tightrope sometimes, right? How do you weigh those competing priorities?
It's all about having a clear investment philosophy and a well-defined decision-making process.
Okay.
Are you, more risk-averse, prioritizing capital preservation above all else? Or are you willing to embrace calculated risks to pursue those higher potential returns?
So there's no one-size-fits-all answer, but you need to be able to articulate your approach.
Yes.
And back it up with, solid reasoning and examples from your experience.
Exactly. You might say something like, I believe in a diversified portfolio that balances risk and return based on the investor's time horizon and risk tolerance. For example, for a long-term investor with a higher risk appetite, I might recommend allocating a larger portion of their portfolio to growth stocks, while for a more conservative investor seeking stability, I'd focus on high-quality bonds and dividend-paying stocks.
So it's about, really tailoring your answer to the specific situation.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a great example of how to do that. And, again, I'm going to plug the RoleCatcher Career Guide because I think it can provide some really valuable insights into the different types of investment strategies used by financial risk managers.
Yeah, it's all about connecting those dots between theory and practice.
Exactly. All right, we've covered a lot of ground in this second part of our deep dive into financial risk manager interview prep, but there's still more to come.
There is.
So stay tuned. We'll be back with part 3, where we'll tackle even more challenging questions.
We will.
And explore how RoleCatcher's AI can help you, fine-tune those interview skills and land that dream job.
It's an exciting time.
It is. All right, so stay tuned. All right, welcome back to the final part of our financial risk manager interview prep deep dive.
We've covered a lot of ground, from those technical concepts to those behavioral questions.
Yeah.
But we've saved some of the most strategic and thought-provoking questions for last.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so bring on the challenge.
These are the questions that really give you a chance to showcase, that big picture thinking.
Yeah.
Your ability to connect the dots between those different areas of risk management and really your overall fit for the role.
So this is where you really prove that you're not just, somebody who can memorize facts, but you can actually apply this stuff and you can think strategically about it.
Exactly.
Okay, let's jump right in with a question that I think often trips people up. How do you balance risk and return when making investment decisions?
This feels like, one of those classic dilemmas, right? How much risk are you willing to take on for the potential of greater rewards?
Right.
It's a balancing act for sure, and there's no single right answer.
Okay.
The key is to really articulate your investment philosophy and demonstrate, a clear decision-making process.
Okay.
Are you naturally risk-averse? Prioritizing capital preservation above all else?
Right.
Or do you lean towards calculated risks, believing that higher returns often come with greater volatility?
Right. It's like that classic trade-off. So it sounds like it's less about, saying, oh, I'm a high-risk person or I'm a low-risk person, and more about being able to say, okay, here's how I look at a situation. I weigh the pros and cons. I consider all the factors, and then I come to a decision that makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think about times when you've had to make those tough investment calls.
Yeah.
Maybe you had to choose between a low-risk, low-return bond and a higher-risk, higher-return stock.
Right.
How did you weigh the factors involved? What was your decision-making framework?
So it's really important here, I think, to draw on your experience and to be able to give concrete examples.
Absolutely.
So, maybe I'd say something like, okay, I was advising a client on their retirement portfolio. And, I recommended a balanced approach that included a mix of stocks and bonds tailored to their, risk tolerance and their time horizon.
Mhm.
And, while the stock portion of the portfolio carried a little bit higher risk, it also offered the potential for greater growth, which was important given, their long-term investment goals.
Exactly. You've hit on all the key points there.
Okay, good.
You're relating it back to, a real world scenario. You're
Yeah.
explaining your reasoning and you're showing them, how you can apply those principles to make those sound investment decisions.
And again, I think RoleCatcher's Career Guide can provide some really valuable insights into the different types of investment strategies used by financial risk managers. So definitely, check that out as you're preparing.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about another critical skill for any financial risk manager, and that's communication.
Right.
Often the question might be phrased as, how do you communicate financial risks to senior management? So again, this is going beyond just understanding it yourself. This is about explaining it to people who maybe aren't quite as familiar with all the ins and outs of the financial world.
It really is, because even the most brilliant risk analysis is useless if you can't effectively communicate those findings to the people who are making those decisions.
Right.
And
Exactly.
yeah.
So how do you strike that balance between, providing enough detail without overwhelming them with jargon?
It's all about tailoring your message to your audience.
Okay.
Remember, senior managers are busy people.
Yeah, they don't have time to wade through pages and pages of technical stuff.
They don't.
Yeah.
They need the bottom line presented in a way that's, easy to understand and easy to act on.
Okay, so avoid the jargon, avoid the acronyms.
Yes.
Keep it clear, keep it concise.
Structure your message logically.
So instead of saying something like, we're facing significant counterparty risk due to, the deterioration of their creditworthiness, maybe I'd say something like, there's a growing risk that one of our key suppliers may not be able to fulfill their obligations, which could really disrupt our operations and impact our bottom line. So I recommend we diversify our supplier base to mitigate this risk.
Perfect. You've clearly articulated the risk, the
Yeah.
potential impact, and the recommended solution in a way that's easy to grasp.
Exactly.
And remember, visuals can be your best friend here.
Oh yeah, visuals are so powerful.
A well-designed chart or graph can often convey complex information much more effectively than a wall of text.
Way more effectively.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to bring up RoleCatcher's AI tools because I think they can be really helpful here because they can provide feedback on your communication style
They can.
and help you tailor your message to those different audiences.
Their AI-powered platform allows you to simulate different scenarios, like presenting to a CEO versus a board of directors, and you get those personalized suggestions on how to improve your delivery and make your message more impactful.
That's awesome. It's like having your own little personal presentation coach.
It is.
Okay, let's dive into a more open-ended question that gives you a chance to really showcase your experience. Can you tell me about your experience in managing financial risks?
So this is your opportunity to shine a spotlight on your track record and demonstrate the breadth and depth of your expertise.
Okay.
Think about, the different types of financial risks you've encountered. Credit risk, market risk, operational risk, regulatory risk. It's a lot.
It is, but what strategies have you used to mitigate those risks?
Right.
What were some of the challenges you faced?
Yeah, how did you overcome them?
Exactly.
So I guess instead of just listing, tasks or responsibilities, it's really about telling a story, right?
Right.
Kind of painting a picture of a specific situation
Right.
and how you use your skills to navigate it successfully.
Exactly. Remember the STAR method?
Oh, yes, our friend, the STAR method.
Situation, task, action, result.
I feel like we should get that printed on a t-shirt.
Yeah, we should.
Okay, so choose a compelling example that really highlights those problem-solving abilities,
Yeah.
your analytical skills, and your ability to achieve those positive outcomes.
Right.
So maybe I could talk about a time when, I identified a potential liquidity risk for my company. I noticed that, our cash flow is becoming increasingly volatile. So I conducted a really thorough analysis and I developed a contingency plan that involved, securing a line of credit and optimizing our working capital management.
And, these actions really ensured that we had sufficient liquidity to weather the storm and, continue operating smoothly.
Perfect. You set the scene, described the challenge, outlined the steps you took, and highlighted that positive result.
Exactly.
And remember, whenever possible, quantify your impact.
Right.
Did your actions save the company money?
Yeah.
Did they improve their risk profile?
Show me the numbers.
Yes. Give them concrete evidence of your success.
I like it. Okay, so we've talked a lot about, Staying current and staying ahead of the curve. So this is a question that's all about that. How do you stay up to date with the latest trends and changes in financial risk management?
So this is where you demonstrate your commitment to continuous learning and really your passion for this field.
Right, you're a lifelong learner.
Exactly. Think about those resources you rely on: industry publications, professional organizations, online courses, conferences, webinars, even platforms like RoleCatcher.
Right.
They provide a wealth of information and insights.
Yeah, there's so much out there.
There is.
Yeah. So it's not just about listing those resources, though. It's about being able to explain, why you find them valuable and how they help you stay informed.
Absolutely. Maybe you're a regular reader of Risk Magazine. You find their articles on emerging risks particularly insightful.
Yeah.
Or perhaps, you participate actively in those GARPO forums.
Right.
And you learn a lot from those discussions with other risk professionals.
Yeah, you're part of the community.
Show them that you're actively engaged in the field.
Right.
Not just passively absorbing information.
And I think this is also a great place to mention any relevant certifications that you hold. Like the FRM or the CFA.
Absolutely. Those certifications demonstrate your commitment to professional excellence and your dedication to staying at the forefront of the field.
Right. Those letters after your name mean something.
They do.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, any final words of wisdom for those who are, gearing up for those financial risk manager interviews?
Remember, preparation is key. Study the job description, carefully research the company, practice your answers, and leverage all those resources that are at your disposal, including RoleCatcher's AI-powered tools.
Yeah, those tools are really game changers.
They are. And most importantly, be yourself. Let that passion for risk management shine through and, really demonstrate why you're the ideal candidate for that role.
I love that advice. This has been such an incredibly insightful deep dive. I feel so much more prepared to tackle those interview questions and hopefully land my dream job in financial risk management. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
You're very welcome.
And to all of you listening out there, best of luck with your interviews. We're rooting for you.